highest number of COVID cases in the world.
Wait a minute, Faraji. I think
You're conflating shit.
No, yesterday, Tedros Ghebreyesus, who is over the World Health Organization, called for a moratorium on booster shots in the global north until vaccines are delivered to Africa. 1%. You got people who will crawl through over broken glass to try to get a vaccine in Ghana, Nigeria, even
What the fuck he talking about?
America. That's where we've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hilton, the Lambda strain is coming. As far as Cuba's concerned, that's geopolitics. The United States and the global north freezing Cuba out. They developed 2 vaccines, the Ebola vaccine and the Soberana vaccine, both over 90% effective. And so far, they've begun to knock it. I think they're close to 11 million in Cuba now taking 1 shot. But Dr. Hilton, help me, because again, and Roland, I'm glad you mentioned President Mahairi. James Hilder, you had him on before anybody. He's an epidemiologist. I mean, Wayne Frederick and Howard, the sister who's president of Morehouse School of Medicine. You had them on over and over again, and you've kind of been the thread through all of it, Dr. Hilton. So something I heard on the show the other day, the brother from A&T who you had on, Roland, make this point. But Dr. Hilton, correct me if I'm wrong, the Delta Plus, the Lambda, I had Moderna. Number one, that doesn't make me immune to COVID. But in terms of the new variants, am I now, because of those, if I get one of those variants, am I more likely to be a carrier with a mild illness? And then because the new variant looks at, COVID is not racist. And the new variant, if I understand this correctly, because of the new variant, I am more likely to infect an uninfected person than maybe even before they had a vaccine out. This vaccine's not helping me against, we don't even know if it's going to help me against COVID. But
and it's one of these things. So let's define how variants come across. So it's almost, again, I don't come from a medical family, so I try to think in very simple terms of how I wish someone would explain it to me. So you can think about variants like the telephone game. If I say ABCD QRST, and then Reese says ABCD QRSTV, right? And then the next person says ABC QRLMN. That's the slight change where we keep the same base, but then it's slightly different in between. That's what mutants are. Because as COVID goes from me to Reese to Roland, the virus's only job and only goal is
to mutate.
And it knows that if I can trick the immune system, then that's the most likely that I can get to the next generation of me. So I have to change slightly from me to Reese, from Reese to Roland, in order to get to the next generation, if that makes sense. And so when you're talking about the vaccine, what we do know is that the vaccine still recognizes fairly well that ABCD. Now, it does not necessarily recognize the QRS if you throw in some other letters, and I'm hoping this is making sense to people as far as this telephone game. But what we do see is that the vaccine itself reduces your likelihood of being hospitalized or infected by 8%, 8 times, right? 8 times less likely to be infected. You're 25 times less likely to be hospitalized and 25 times less likely to die if you are vaccinated versus if you're not. Now, do we have a real threat that we're going to get a telephone game where now instead of it saying ABCD, that it says QRS first and throws us all the way off? Yes. And the reason why we have the biggest is, again, when we were just talking to the gentleman about vaccines and he mentioned Africa, I don't know, and I think you said you've never been to Africa. I've done mission trips in Africa, and I lived in Tanzania for a month, and then for 2 weeks the following year in 2013. And I tell you that one hospital was servicing in Tanzania, Mwanza, Tanzania, the entire country of Tanzania. There is not a resource there that we have the luxury of having here in the United States of America.
So stop comparing that shit.
They don't have cases, not because they don't have cases, it's because they don't have tests for those people. Literally, we have patients that would walk to the hospital for days that I could put up, videos of what I took to show how these children who had infections within their belly, their families had to carry them for days to get to the hospital, and unfortunately they would pass away there. So we cannot say that they don't. And it's an injustice to Africa, the continent of Africa, actually, at this stage where 15% of the global population is vaccinated, but yet in Africa it's only 1.8%. Because they are not getting vaccines in the rate that the wealthiest countries are getting vaccines, and they are dying. And it's not only in Africa, it's in South America. Literally, when we're talking about the P1 variant, that was out of Brazil, right? That was We had the Alpha variant first in the UK. We had the South African variant, right? I don't know if y'all remember that one. And then we had the E1 variant, which was in Brazil. This is not a game of, oh, well, we're only dying in the United States. We're testing more in the United States. We're not doing as many tests as we should be doing in the United States. And yes, we are able to count our deaths better because we have the medical resources that if you get sick because you don't want to get vaccinated right now for whatever reason, you can go into a hospital that's at least 20 minutes car ride from your home, right? That's not the same in every other location. And unfortunately, it's that type of not understanding the system holistically that's causing a lot of people to doubt the system, and unfortunately it's costing their lives, because what we do know again is that in the United States of America, 1 out of every 420 black people has died from COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic. And it's only going to get worse. We are again estimating right now we have 100,000 cases being diagnosed a day. That's going to go between now and September the 1st, which is only 3 more weeks, up to 200,000 people we're estimating going to be diagnosed a day. And by October the 1st, we're going to be burying 4,000 people a day. And how many of those people are going to be black people? And it doesn't have
Dr. Hilton, I'm interested to get your take on, how do we have a conversation like this? And it's fine. I mean, we can go back and forth, but I think that it's very important that we have a conversation like this from a space of really understanding that black folks do not trust the medical industry of America. We don't trust the medical system, right? We understand that, there are 2 books, and I'm sure Dr. Carr can go further on it. Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington, that talks about the dark history of medical experimentation.
That is not what this is, bro.
Of Skin by Alan Hornby, which deals with medical experimentation done largely on black inmates. So when we have that history, I mean, how do we just put that to the side? Do we just say, no, it's not important because the numbers are for this is right now? Or do we just say, okay, let's figure out some other way to address this beyond a PR campaign?
No, and I think we do address the history. Again, I don't come from a medical family. The reason why I went into medicine is literally when I was 8 years old, my little sister asked my mom for a brother. I'm the middle of 3 girls. And at that time, my mom told me that my parents' first child was actually a little boy. She was in her 11th grade of high school. They got pregnant. She went to a clinic, and at 6 months pregnant, they did a test on her. She started leaking fluid. My brother was born within 2 days, and he only lived 3 days, and he passed away. That's the reason why I went into medicine, because I, at the age of 8, felt like I could possibly make a difference where another mother would have to cry because she has to bury her child. And so in growing up in medicine, I have definitely taken with everything that I am from that space. I am from that very neighborhood of where we were talking about this media, where we're talking about, you're talking about actually with the acres of skin, that's the Philadelphia experiment, a prison experiment. All that stuff, literally, if you look at our website, I have a consulting firm called Good Stop Consulting. Literally, that's all we talk about day in and day out. And what we are saying is holding institutions accountable. If you look at things like Tuskegee, for instance, they were withholding medication for black people that could have kept them alive. And in this stage of COVID-19, what I ask everyone clearly is, if it was an experiment that could possibly taint you or kill you, would you see the most powerful people in our nation, white people, the President of the United States? Would you see the Lindsey Grahams? Would you see the Mitch McConnells? All of them jumping in front of us, black people, who should have been in the front of the line because we had racial health disparities. But we had Marco Rubio, we had Ted Cruz, we had the Fox News support, people. They were the first ones on stage, so they could use it as a political stunt to say, oh, I'm just doing this to gain interest and to gain the support. No, they were doing it because they knew it could save their lives. And Lindsey Graham right now with his COVID positive self, if he did not have the vaccine, would likely be dead. That's the truth of what we're dealing with. So we have to look at this thing and take a step back and say, if it was this huge experiment, then would we be seeing people literally jump over you in order to get it. Because if y'all don't want it, I guarantee you there's people all around this globe, like in India, where they're burying 13,000 people a day because of the Delta variant, that would say, please give it to me, because I don't want to die.
So you do you, boo.
Unfortunately, in the United States, between now and December 31st, many people who are hearing my voice right now will not be here. And possibly even me, because when people are coming to the hospital, they are coughing in our face. I don't want to die either. But it's that selfishness and thought of, well, I don't want to put something in my body. But when you get sick, then all I ask for you to do is keep that same energy. Again, I'm not from a medical family. Take the white coat off. Keep that same energy then, and don't come into the hospital coughing in my face.
Right.
Because I want to go home with my family too.
That's right.
And that's
I'm gonna bring Reese in. Reese, Roger talked about having a conversation. That's what we've literally done just for the last 15, 16 months. This is precisely why I have put on black medical experts. We know, based upon the research, Reese, black people trust black doctors than they do anybody else. So there was a reason why. Now, I get this whole deal about let's have the conversation, but this is the dilemma that we are in. We can talk about what has happened over the last 100, 200, 300 years, or we can talk about how we're going to enrich funeral home directors today.
Right. Here's what's so frustrating, because this is exactly what I have been screaming about, the way that disinformation has really infiltrated our communities. I think we need to challenge ourselves as black people. Why is it that we can quote and we can cite Robert F. Kennedy, I don't know if it's the junior or the third, but a virulent anti-vaxxer who's targeting our communities with this, who's been targeting our communities with anti-vaccination rhetoric, and specifically the COVID anti-vaccination rhetoric. I mean, it's going so far as to hand out flyers. Why is it that there's trust put in that person as opposed to a doctor like Dr. Ebony J. Hilton, who is telling us that, why is it that we as black people, not all of us, and I'm not trying to jump on you, Taraji, but this is my frustration that I've seen in our community, where I've been screaming about this. And Dr. Ebony, you know that I've been saying this because you're talking about vaccine access, and I said we have to talk about hesitancy as well. We have to talk about the way that there is a deterrence campaign infecting our community. And why is it that as black people we will believe a sensational lie from a white person who wants to do harm to us than the simple truth from black people who are trying to protect us, who are trying to get the truth out there, who are trying to save our communities? And I'm not trying to criticize you, because I don't think that it's you alone who is repeating some of these things. But when you quote the CHD and the Children's Health Defense, that's an anti-vax organization. That's an anti-vax organization by a white man who does not want what's best for our community.
Oh, no, don't get it twisted. No, don't get it twisted. It's not about choosing. Look, I trust, and of course, Dr. Hilton is not my personal doctor. I trust her scholarship and her medical expertise. So it's not about that. This is a much larger conversation. So it's not like,
you're a fucking moron.
We're not listening to black doctors, but at the same time, black doctors have been used, and I'm saying historically, I'm not speaking of Dr. Hilton, but black doctors have been the face of white interest and white power in the medical industry.
But that's making my point about the cynicism and skepticism towards black doctors. And all I'm saying is, why isn't there that same towards anti-vaxxers like Robert F. Kennedy and the
Okay, fine. You don't have to bring Robert F. Kennedy. You can bring him.
But that's who you quoting.
All I'm saying is, why is there not equal, if not more, skepticism and cynicism towards the people that are actually trying to harm our community, that are actually trying to make it so that 1 in 420 black people becomes 1 in 200 or 1 in 100? Why is there not the same level of scrutiny and cynicism towards those people? Those are the people who are actually trying to harm us. That's what I'm saying. If you want to be skeptical of anybody, I'm all for being critical. I'm all for getting the facts. I'm all for doing the research. But what I find as a trend, and it's not exclusive to COVID-19, it's in politics, it goes across the board, is there's data that is contrary to conventional wisdom that is uncritically ingested, indoctrinated, and regurgitated, and then you have the actual facts on the other side, and the people that are trying to give the facts, people like Dr. Ebony J. Hilton, and a number of Black experts, as Roland has had on the show, are the ones who are tools of the white agenda, and they're the PR campaign. The PR campaign is the Children's Health Defense Fund. There's not a medical organization. They're putting out fires trying to get us
activists. So it is what it is. But again, we see this is not about picking and choosing. This is looking at a pattern. This is looking at a system that has not been kind to Black bodies.
Okay, fine. Yeah, show me this here. Hey, fine. Show me this. This is very simple. Please show me. And first of all, we know very well what.
Yeah, stop selling us.
In America.
That ain't
not NAS system in America.
That's not biased against us.
We can apply that to real estate.
Anything. Are you gonna stop buying cars?
System. We got that. Fine. Show me this. Show me a Black doctor who does not believe in the current 3 vaccines, who has come up with an alternative. Who?
A Black doctor.
Yes.
See, that's
medical doctor. The one brother that said the aliens firm, he might mention her. I mean, it literally makes me think about
Hold on. Roger, I'm making a point. Because here's the piece.
Go ahead.
Show me. You mentioned other
alternatives
and what they're doing. Show me a Black doctor who has done that. Because you asked Ebony, hey, were there other doctors who came up with other avenues or methods that are alternatives to the vaccine? Okay, show me. No.
You don't get to do that.
No, the fact that you can ask that question, and I don't know, and Ebony don't know, and Greg don't know, and Reese don't know, and if they're there, fine, bring it out there. But the dilemma that we are faced with right now is this: it literally is life or death. See, we can have the historical, larger, broader, deeper breakdown of the system. This is what I know right now. When my ass don't fill up my gas, I better have some gloves on and some damn disinfectant, because the Delta variant might be on that gas pump. When I get on that plane, I am not thinking, I'm going to be real clear, when I sit my ass on that plane tomorrow to fly to Charleston, South Carolina, Roland at that moment ain't thinking about Tuskegee. I'm not thinking about a jail. I'm thinking about goggles, masks, filter, gloves, wipe everything down, get out of there. I'm not dismissing nothing that's happened to us historically, but I have to deal with the present of what's happening now, and that's why Dr. Robert Graves from North Carolina A&T has constantly been on here, and Ebony, and Tyson Bell, and when you had the presidents of Dillard and Xavier participated in this COVID study. That's why we had the president of the National Medical Association, the largest group of Black doctors in the country. And then we had these people on because if we can't trust our Black experts, well, hell, who left? Because I damn sure not going to listen to Robert F. Kennedy.
And that's fine.
Karachi, you remember this, brother, when HIV/AIDS was really slamming our people, and it's still slamming our people. That's what we'll talk about in a minute. But remember Dr. Lord of Justice, Abdul Ali Muhammad, we're talking about friend of mine and various. Now, let's set aside the science. because I agree with you 100% about the distrust of the system. And it isn't just historical. I mean, Dorothy Roberts up at University of Pennsylvania Law School wrote a book called Killing the Black Body. It isn't just Tuskegee. It isn't just Holmesburg Prison. It's our experiences in the doctor's office every day. And so I guess, I'm thinking, how do we maybe steer into this? In other words, what you described, in terms of how you're going to approach that claim, there are people who would say, but you're fully vaccinated, brother. You don't have, no. I'm going to absorb all of that experience-based paranoia of this system and protect myself. Because I remember, in fact, sitting and listening to Ali Muhammad saying, yeah, you know what, there probably have been some breakthroughs. And of course, Big Pharma wouldn't let us know that. At the same time, to what you're raising, Ron, is very important. And Faraji, and I know this because I hear you, brother, and I embrace that energy in part because I went to, and Roland, you covered it. You sent your team to cover it. When the Tuskegee descendants of the people who were in the Tuskegee experiment came to Howard. Yep. I'm listening. I can hear it logically, but I understand class plays a role in our society, which means that there are black people who trust no petty bourgeois nigga. And especially when they're basically talking to black people like we're stupid. So in other words, we got to do this, you stupid. So immediately, part of the reaction is, I ain't going to do it because I don't like how you talking to me. So why don't you help me? Doc, what you said at the end there, that when you and Faraji were talking, that really hit me because, my sister's, my mother's sister's oldest child, my cousin, has been a nurse for almost 50 years. And she works in Baltimore sometimes, she's on the West Coast. But when you say, I want to go home to my family, I'm saying, see, that's the kind of talk. But see, you know how to talk like that because you didn't come from one of them petty bourgeois family. No, black people going to have to be talked to as if you are intelligent. And I know you don't trust them Negroes. In fact, the more degrees you got, the least you trust them. But when you say something like that, I'm thinking about my cousin, and I'm saying, if you go in the hospital in Baltimore and kill Jeanette, I'm coming for your ass today. In other words,
damn right.
But I think that, Rush, what I'm saying, that I think we have to learn how to listen to our people in a way that doesn't communicate we think we smarter than them. I think that's why we don't trust politicians, don't trust many black doctors. And so I'm just saying all that to say that what you're voicing, a lot of our people, in fact, Roland, this is why Roland Martin put this so important. Because there are people who are listening who are saying, you know what, I don't know if it's a doctor that created that. I don't trust these people. I'm saying you shouldn't trust none of them. Because if it was up to them, we'd all be dead. But guess what? You need to trust that, which means what? If they're taking it, to Doc's point, then you need to think about taking it. Why? Because the one thing about being free, you have to be alive to be free on top of the earth.
And that's why when Dr. Anthony Hilton, Dr. Tyson Bell, they purposely, when they got the shot, they shot the video, they documented everything. Talk about that, why y'all did that. Other black doctors did that because this is real simple. If Dr. Anthony, you ain't trying to sit here and put something in your body that's going to screw you up.
Right. And literally, I was the very first person at UVA to take the vaccine, and I wanted them to videotape it. And then I did YouTube videos of showing me the days after because I don't come from a medical family. I completely understand where the mistrust comes from, and I wanted it to be one of those things of people can see by my example. I wouldn't do something to myself that could potentially kill myself. I mean, I love life. And I didn't feel that it would be right of anybody in the medical profession to ask someone else to do what they wouldn't do themselves. And so, like I said, I completely get it. I think, and I apologize if I came out as being kind of hardy and blunt, because it literally...
No, you're not apologizing. No. Keep it real.
I do think, it's by the grace of God, my immediate family has not died. And I literally think about that all the time.
Same here.
And so how do we get past this point of needing more and more data when the data is already there and we're trying to find data that proves that gives our anxiety a home. And at this point, every day that we are trying to find that home space for that anxiety, 600 people are dying from COVID. going to find itself to your door just because the Delta variant is literally, the viral load of the Delta variant is 1,000 times higher than the original COVID. It is not something that you can just say, oh, I'll be okay. And even if you don't die, I have a mentee who is a young black woman. She's in her mid-20s. She hasn't been able to taste or smell since January. And what does that mean when your brain no longer works in the same way? She is 26. What will her life look like when she's 40 or 50? Will she develop Alzheimer's at a younger age? We don't know. But we do know that that part of her brain is now scarred in some kind of way. That's scary. And you don't have to go through that. Wear your mask, get vaccinated. Don't go to Lollapalooza and things like that. It's not worth your life to have 48 hours of fun. We're just trying to get through this together. That's all.
All right, Dr. Evans. Reese, go ahead, the final comment.
Okay, let me just talk to the audience right now. Here's the thing, my people. I understand the hesitancy. I understand the mistrust. What I want to warn you about is that there is a campaign to use that mistrust to further damage our community, our lives. They are playing on that mistrust. There's a campaign through foreign interference, through social media, through organizations like the Children's Health Defense Fund that mean us harm, that are utilizing our well-warranted mistrust to damage us even further. And so just at least keep that in mind when you're seeing some of this anti-vax information. It is your choice. It is your choice. But I will say, in terms of medical racism, black women have the highest black maternal mortality rate. We do have the benefit. I know many black women that decided to do home births, have decided to get doulas. That isn't as much an option with COVID. I had standard C-section in a hospital. There are alternatives to counter that medical racism. The government is telling us the only thing you get is the vaccine or a ventilator if you get the thing, or a body bag. Good luck, bitches. So you make the decision whether you want to throw your lot in with the vitamins, with the disinformation, with your immune system being in perfect health, or if you want to give yourself a little bit more of a chance with the vaccine. It's up to you. But the government is saying that's it. The bad pandemic of the unvaccinated means if you don't get the vaccine, don't say shit to us. That's what the government is saying, and that's what the employers are saying. And so that's your choice to determine which side you're going to be on.
Dr. Ebony Hilton, I'm going to say thanks for a second time since you decided to come back home. Watch the conversation. That's what I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Y'all be safe.
All right, we're going to go to a break, and during this commercial break, I'm going to show you this is not all of the experts, but you're going to see, because I need y'all to see what we've been doing. Okay? We have not, this is no shade to anybody. We